What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Home Service Success TV. Today is a special episode because we're speaking with a Wit client and we're joined by our amazing client strategist, Ryan Cook. Now, this is a client that came on board only a few months ago, so we're going to talk about why they switched marketing agencies, where they're at before switching, and where they're headed. So before starting this business, our guest was a master plumber for the better part of 15 years. He had owned a couple businesses beforehand, and in 2016 moved to Austin, Texas, and decided to start fresh with a new plumbing and HVAC business. Their director of operations is also here today, and he has a background in management, having spent 25 years turning around underperforming regions for Orkin Pest Control. After retiring from that gig, he entered consulting for the plumbing and HVAC business. So, without further ado, please welcome Daniel Lawlis and Jim Berry of Daniel's Plumbing and Air Conditioning in Austin, Texas. All right, so you guys both have pretty storied careers. Jim, I want to start with you. You had quite the career at Orkin. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got to where you are today.
I started my career in 1984 with Orkin. I got into their management training program, and I grew quite rapidly with the company, and sales and revenue generation was a kind of a specialty of mine. So from there, one thing to the next, and I was probably the youngest district manager within the company in 1986 at around 34 years old. I got into the region sales management. I got into region management, and then in 1992, I started relocating, and over the next 17 years, I relocated 14 times. I've been in every state east of the Mississippi, California, and Texas to the west. So during all that time, I learned a lot of various management philosophies, different people, understanding what makes a business profitable. Once I retired from Orkin, that lasted about 2 weeks. And in 2010, I started with a large residential service provider in Houston. And from there, it just grew. I spent a couple years out in California, 2015 through 2017. Came back home and started with Daniel in 2019. Been with him now for about 16 months and enjoying every minute of it.
Man, yeah, so you do have quite the career. And also, last time we talked, you mentioned how, you'd worked for Orkin, right? But after really working for them, you decided to buy out some of their struggling,
I did.
Right? Some of their struggling branches, right? And then turn those around and sold them right back to them.
I did. I did that in 2002. And I had a 7-year agreement on most of them. I could have renewed them, but I did a fast turnaround on those. And in 2010, I sold the last one that I had in College Station, Texas. That's whenever I decided I was going to retire. That lasted about 2 weeks, and then I went to work as a consultant in the service industries.
So you're the man when it comes to like turning around home service companies. Like, you've been around the block.
I don't beat my horn about it, but I do have a high success rate with it.
Yeah, it's something special. So Daniel, let's talk about you. Let's hear a little bit about your backstory and the impetus, to moving to Austin and then starting Daniel's.
Well, I just got into plumbing at 17 years old, very, very young, and I really thought it was a temporary situation. I was like, this is just a way to make some extra money as a teenager. And then it just blossomed over time into a career. So I owned a business in College Station, Texas. That's not where I know Jim, but our paths kind of meandered across each other a few times, just never at the same time. And it was, Austin was somewhere I always wanted to be. At one time, plumbing was just something I did, and I was focused on music, and I wanted my career to be, songwriting and music, and maybe, plumbing was just like an afterthought. And after a while, I was like, wow, I have all this time into plumbing, and I have this many hours, and on and on. And so different circumstances, I got to a certain age in life, and I was like, Austin's 100 miles away from me. I'm gonna live the life I want. I'm gonna move there. I had this vision of what kind of business I wanted here in Austin, and so I moved in May of 16, and just me in a van by myself, ran my first call on June 1st of 2016. That's how I ended up here in Austin, and then so that would have been in January of 97 when I started, was an apprentice plumber. And so that's over, we're coming up on 24 years.
Gotcha. Wow. So today's actually the first day that I've learned that, Daniel, you are a musician as well. And Jim, I knew that you were, kind of had a background in music. So I'm curious, was that an early connection for you guys talking music?
No, not at all. I don't think we've ever talked music. I don't even know if Jim's ever even heard me play, unless he was in the next office and heard me messing around in my office. Okay. No, that was never a connection. You want to know what the connection was?
I do, yeah.
So I was always say I have, no matter what you do, you have to be okay with the worst case scenario being the outcome, right? And so as I grew the business, every time I would sign off on a new truck or hire a new person, and I was just like, oh, this is so scary as I grew. But I was like, you know what? My backup plan is if this thing don't work out, if I'm going to write songs, I'm going to play music, I'm going to run 2 calls a day as a plumber, and I'm going to get really good at smoking brisket. I'm going to get a part job at Style Switch Barbecue or somewhere like that. And I was like, man, that sounds like a really good life. Like, so I was really reckless because I was like, I really want that. That sounds like a great life. So I'm gonna get really reckless with my business. So maybe that can be my fate. But I got, had more, I like to say more balls than brains. And so about a year and a half ago, I'm looking for some help, right? I'm looking for a service manager, actually. And I come across Jim on Indeed, and I noticed that he had spent a few years at a company, John Moore Services, there in Houston. And that's a company I spent some time at as well. Back to the meandering thing. It was different times. He got there years after I'd left, and that got my attention, and I reached out to him. And so that was kind of the connection, how we made that connection. It wasn't revolving around music.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Now, what about your move to Austin?
Yeah, Daniel.
I know Austin's a heavy, have an awesome music culture, right? So maybe that played a part in that.
Oh, me moving here? Yeah, I think it was more than that. It was, when you're younger, you tend to like doubt yourself a lot. You're not very sure of yourself at the time, and so you can listen to all the experts and listen to everybody and never get the result that you want out of life or the results out of your business. And at some point, with enough experience, you gain enough confidence to trust your gut and just pursue the life that you want, or pursue the type of business that you want, and just go for it. And that's kind of, there was, obviously the music was somewhat of an attraction to me. I still play my guitar. I still have a notebook full of songs and I'll dabble with, but it's not something I'm pursuing. I mean, the passion, part of the business that is fulfilling that, I'm very passionate about the business, very passionate about the brand, and that allows me to satisfy that part of me.
Gotcha. Very
and
cool.
And I have a lot of offspring to support as well. So I got a bunch of.
Yeah, the practical side of being a musician, of course.
Well, yeah, there's a balance of passion and utility in life, right? You find that balance.
Well, cool. So yeah, let's talk about kind of the early years of Daniels. So started in 2016, right? Met Jim in 2019, and we'll get into what the past year looked like. But really, what did I guess the first 3 years, 2016 to 2019, look like? I mean, you mentioned a little bit. You were kind of still figuring everything out. You're more of a visionary, needed the management side, but I guess speak just a little bit more to that for our audience.
Well, a lot of folks make a mistake, and I made this mistake, is you want to have a great culture, right? And so you hire people that you really like. They're fun to hang out with. They're the type of people that, at least for me, they're like, I want to go drink a beer with. I want to hang out with. I want to tell dirty jokes with, right? But yeah, that's great, but that doesn't really work in business. You can't. There's a lot of accountability that has to be in business, and so I was struggling with a lot of things, and the missing ingredient, I was hiring people that I wanted to hang out with, and we all become friends, and they knew everything about my life. I knew everything about them, and then at some point I realized, like, all right, I can't just have this cool brand and these great vans and all, a great culture and everything else. We have to make money as well. That doesn't pay the bills. And so as once as that started becoming a reality, and I had to focus on making the company profitable and not just having a great culture or a great brand. I mean, that's fun. I like to create things, so that part was fun. Every time we get a new van, I was like, oh yeah, it's great. Everybody's like, I see your vans, I see this, I see your uniforms, everything's so cool. And there's a lot of great recognition that comes with that. It's very satisfying, but without money, you're not going to do anything, right? You're not going to you're just going to kind of be a flash in the pan, right? And so most of the struggles came from taking a culture, taking a company that kind of had that culture, and myself, I take full responsibility, is kind of, having a paradigm shift with myself, and also trying to navigate all that through the culture and through the processes, through the company, which, a lot of people aren't going to survive that, especially people that are your friend, because you're not going to get, what I've experienced is, oh yeah, Daniel's my friend, I don't really have to do that. Then when there's some accountability and we know we have to part ways, and your friends end up hating you because they feel betrayed. And so that was kind of, for me personally, as a business owner, as we grew the business, and that was the biggest struggle for me, is putting processes in place, holding people accountable, and finding that balance between culture and revenue and profitability, which goes back to that same balance of passion and utility. The culture is the passionate part of the business. The branding is the passionate. The utility part is, hey, the rent's going to be due, payroll taxes are due, and the van notes are due, and we have to pay for all of this stuff, right? And so the biggest struggle for me was not making the phone ring. There's two things I'm really good at. I'm really good at making the phone ring, or creating a brand. Y'all are really good at making the phone ring for us, better than I am. But I'm good at creating a brand. I can get people to work for me. It's very bizarre, right? So those are the two things I'm good at. And so that was the biggest struggle, is learning those things as I went. And that's where Jim kind of came into the story.
Yeah, so Jim, I want to hear this from your perspective. When you entered in 2019, what did you see? What were the first, areas of opportunity and things that you identified? Yeah.
the approach that I take in business, the very first thing I do is I manage business by the front door, back door. That's a philosophy that I have. Our customers and our calls come through the front of the office, which is I call the front door. So we have our customers, we have everything that happens right there in that front office with CSRs, everything going on. So when I walk in, and then I really observed a very young team. The thing that I connected with Daniels about was the fact that here was a brilliant young man who really had the ability. And I built a couple of brands in my career with some folks, and then coming from Orkin, we were really big into branding. So it's a strong point that I have. And I don't know. There were a lot of things that we had to go through to make the changes and the adjustments that we needed to make, getting the right team on place. But it was it started out being a 3-day gig. I was just going to go over there. I was going to observe, make my recommendations, collect my check, and come on back home. That was 15, 16 months ago.
I was like a year and a half ago. I was 18 months ago.
Has it been about 18 months? I know it's been a while. It goes by pretty fast, and it's really been great to watch this. I was going to make this my last really big rodeo, if you will, and it's been a good one. I told Daniel I was going to see this one through because he's got it's the best. Out in California was a great gig. We really did some good things there, but this Austin connection with the next 5 years that Austin growing the industries that's leaving California, coming to Austin, the market dynamics are so great that Daniel could probably be 5-6 times larger than he is right now within the next 5 years through great organization management processes. We've just hired a very skilled individual to help us run the operations side of the business. And there's a lot of great things that's really going to happen in 2021. Yeah, COVID came along and kind of set us all back a little bit, but adversity is really what makes us stronger. It's the way that we deal with them and grow from them. So I'm looking for some great things in 2021.
Indeed. And I think good things are lined up for all of us. I think we're all ready for the up and up, right?
Yeah.
So cool. I want to talk about how Wit is the third marketing provider for you guys in less than a year. And, what you were struggling with those past providers, what were some of the frustrations around those experiences were, and then also, the fear around switching, right? If Wit's your third provider, you probably, you found one, maybe weren't super happy, made a switch, and that was kind of hard enough, like pull the plug on that first one, go to a second one. But to pull the plug a third time, like, I think a lot of people have fear around switching. And they know that, a healthy marketing partner is going to be around for the long term. So give us a little bit of insight from your guys' perspective, what that journey was like, the fear around switching, and then, how it felt once you found a marketing partner that you guys knew was going to have your best interests at heart and actually really care about your guys' growth and make that happen.
You want me to take it?
Go first? Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, so I was about 2 years ago, I was, had it narrowed down to Wit. I kind of had a relationship with Steven, the owner, and in another company. And a friend of mine, he's well respected in the industry. I texted him. I said, "Hey, what would you do?" And he just said, "Oh, Wit, no question." And I was like, "Oh, it's just too quick of an answer. I don't trust that. I don't like quick answers." And I I don't remember the circumstances surrounding everything, but I went towards the other company. And it was a lack of experience because I really didn't know what I was necessarily looking for. It's easy to just flash a bunch of pretty things in front of me, especially my brand. They put together a really good presentation about how they're going to brand. They understood my brand here in Austin, and so I went with them. Then that was not working, and I ended up back with a local company that I'd worked with back from 16. Great people. I can go over to their office, sit down with them. Fantastic people. Developed a friendship with the owner. Nothing negative to say on their work ethic. It was just they didn't specialize in the trades, and there was just a disconnect between that. And probably in August, we're in the middle of HVAC season, and Jim comes to me. He goes, there's a lot of, I know you're not going to want to hear this, and we're not going to want to get involved in this right now. But there's something severely wrong with our pay-per-click and our SEO. And we looked at it, and he goes, he had some connections in California and Florida. He was going to make some phone calls. I said, look, I'm calling Steven at Wit. I'm going to text him, and I'm going to set up something with him. Let's hear him out and see if they can help us. And it comes down to business. We're looking at our P&L and everything. All of our expenses are in line exactly where they're at. We benchmark with a Gary Lightfoot up in Fort Worth, friend of mine, and with our P&L, everything is right in line other than our advertising expense, our pay-per-click expense. Actually, that was the glaring thing. And he uses Wit. He's a customer of Wit. And so I reached out to Steven. We jumped on a call with Jim. We got off the call. As soon as I got off the call with Jim and Steven, Jim calls me immediately. Always does that. Oh, wow. I'm just so impressed with Steven. Now I can work with a guy like that. He gets it, and so that's, for about a month and a half, we dealt with Steven directly. And, so yeah, it was super scary. It was like, I can't do this again. We can't switch, but I felt like we weren't, it wasn't a feeling. It was on our P&L. Something's here fairly wrong. We can't get this under control. We're not making any progress. And so we had to, regardless if we were scared to or not, we had to make a switch. And then that's kind of what we did. About, it was, I put a lot of confidence, had a lot of confidence in Steven. I had a lot of confidence and a couple other people that I spoke to about Wit, and we made the switch.
Beautiful. So Ryan, what did you see when you took the account on? You're the account manager for him, right? So you got into the nitty gritty and were able to look at what was working and that we could maintain, right? Because we didn't want to lose any momentum that they already had. But we had to get them to a point where their advertising was absolutely profitable, driving down those costs per lead. So I'll let you take it.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I was brought on to the whole conversation even prior to even talking to Daniel's team. I'm in the background talking to Steven, taking a look at all the back end things, the platform specifically around the AdWords pay-per-click campaign. And, basically it was like this account is hemorrhaging money. And our primary goal is to stop that hemorrhaging and get it to essentially spend less money, but keep lead volume growing. So that's tough. When you hear, we've, increased our budget from $35,000 to $45,000 to $55,000, but the lead volume stays flat. It takes a special kind of person to understand where the gap is. Why would something like that happen? And, I've been doing digital long enough to understand that a lot of folks like to pour a lot of money into pay-per-click because they see it as the last click that happens before a phone call happens. But what they lack to do is consider all the things that lead up to that. And so what we essentially did is we said, okay, we've got to build brand affinity in the market with the right target audience. And, when I got on the phone with Daniel, and unfortunately, Jim, I don't think you were able to make that call, that first kickoff call that we had. But I just knew instantly that there was a real good opportunity here because we got a really kick-ass brand and a really cool market that resonates with each other really well. They're on the same wavelength. And so, we just get to talking, and he's like, I've been thinking about hiring an internal marketing person and this, that, and the other. And we kind of teetered into, would you guys be opening to kind of taking more on than just the digital? And essentially, to make a long story short, we said yes. And this was more of a step forward into an agency offering, whereas we're dealing with other vendors, TV vendors in their market, looking at any ongoing proposals that they had on their desks at that time, and making decisions on where could we stop spending money so that they just weren't continuously hemorrhaging on their advertising line on that P&L. And so we did that. We stopped a lot of those spends, and they had already stopped a lot of them too. And then we kind of moved everything over to more of the high-level branding type platforms. I took a $65,000 a month pay-per-click spend down to $35,000, and keeping, that lead volume high by building and loading that marketing funnel. And, is that what we're doing right now, is that going to last forever? Absolutely not. We have to diversify our marketing and constantly be on top of what does this campaign need to continue this type of trend. So now I'm talking to their local ABC station, trying to work on schedules there to help them push a new 90 or a drain cleaning special because they've got a new truck. They got to pay for all that stuff that they're bringing on. But we're seeing a brand grow, and we're seeing a pay-per-click account drop in spend and the lead volume staying steady. And that just is a huge testament to the power of brand. And so you can pour as much money as you want into pay-per-click, but if you're going up against another guy that does have brand affinity, you're going to lose 9 times out of 10 on that click. So that's really how we've just kind of repositioned the overall marketing buy. It was a little scary at first because it is a lot of money. And I was like, I'm not totally 100% sure this is going to work because every market is different. I've done it with other industries. I've done it in other markets, but I'd never done it with a home service business in Austin. So it was a gamble, but you learn things over the years and over your career. And so we put a couple things in place. I'm watching it every single week. I'm keeping my finger on the pulse. Jim and I were probably talking 2 or 3 times a week right out of the gate. And we needed that. And I think that's really important to note, is that communication between a marketing vendor and the actual business is paramount, especially at the beginning of a campaign, to make sure that you understand what they need and that they understand what you're able to deliver. And at the same time, establish that rapport with each other, because we needed the ability to say, no, that's not a good idea, or yes, that's a good idea. And vice versa. I need them to feel comfortable with, hey, Ryan, this sucks. You need to improve it. Or, hey, Ryan, this is going really great. Pat on the back. And we were able to establish that very quickly. And, we got through October, we overspent in October, we came in November, and we started seeing that call volume pick up, and we basically cut the spend in half. So it's been a lot of fun.
So Jim, from the operations side, how has that transition felt for you, kind of having managed previous agencies before, and what the relationship looks like with Wit, and even from a revenue standpoint?
I was just thinking about that. And what triggered that quick reaction from me with Wit was the very first conversation that Daniel spoke about. And when you're dealing with entrepreneurs, rather than in the corporate world, you surround yourself with people that can give you the answers, and you have all of these. The guy at the very top may not have a lot of investment in what needs to be done properly, but he's surrounded with a lot of yes people. When I started dealing with entrepreneurs, you're dealing with a different personality, you're dealing with a whole different mindset. And when I interviewed Wit that day on the phone, like I said, I've dealt with a lot of people in my career, and when I interviewed Wit on the phone that day, there was such a serious connection with his congeniality with the operations, that I knew, almost like Daniel said, I knew almost immediately that I wanted to do business with this guy, because he really cared about, if you're passionate about what you do, and what you do becomes your hobby, you're going to be really good at it. And I determined right then that Wit was very passionate. Then when I started working with Ryan, that same passion bled over into that. And there's an old saying out there: speed of the leader, is the speed of the followers. Every single individual that I've interacted with at Wit has been that way. So service oriented. And you can't beat service. You cannot beat, if you can have personalities, and you like the personality you're dealing with, but if you can't back that service up with great quality service, all you have is a personality. And but Wit, Ryan, and everyone there, they have such a great personality that I knew it was going to be a success. I knew it was going to take patience. Ryan said, I'd call Ryan. And I said, Ryan, we got to do something. I got some guys here starving on the vine. Jim, you got to be patient. Got to be patient. And it did. Every time he would come through for us. So our working relationship is really personal. It's almost like they're sitting in the next office from us. And it's a great relationship compared to a lot of the times that I've worked with people in California dealing with folks out in Florida. The folks out in Florida were good at what they did, but we were 20 centuries away on the West Coast from the East Coast, and it just didn't work well for us. But this is working out great for us.
Well, good. And yeah, we had mentioned a little earlier how 2021 is going to be a good year for you guys, and I think you guys are on the right path. And I know you guys are expanding some service offerings in 2021. So I want to get into that, and I also want to talk a little bit about how the brand is going to evolve over the next year or two. So in addition to those service offerings, Daniel, maybe you could speak a little bit too, and you too, Jim, from a culture standpoint, how you're going to manage that growth moving forward.
Jim, go ahead and take this on the service offerings.
Yeah, it's a great question. When I got there, Daniel and I kind of put together a short-term plan on what we were going to do right then, what we wanted to do going into 2020, and then what we wanted to do for 2021. So the first service that we invested in, and we're really getting our feet wet with it, is our main line. We now our stoppage business. So we invested heavily into some equipment for mainline stoppages. We have an excavator. We've got a full-fledged crew now dedicated to that. Then we wanted to in 2020, our goal was to start our HVAC side of the business, and that's where we're really going to make a big impact this year, is with our HVAC. In addition to that, we have a full-on set of IAQ, indoor air quality products. COVID brought about a huge awareness to the public about the need for indoor air quality, and so we have a lot of involvement in duct cleaning. We have a lot of involvement in adding the air purifiers and the things that we need to add to provide inside of a home with the quality air that you need. The air on the inside of a home is up to five times more polluted than it is on the outside. So the air that we breathe on the inside is more polluted than the air on the outside. So we're capitalizing off of that. We're wanting to make you have good hospital grade, or allow you to have good hospital grade air to breathe on the inside. So that's the big push that we've got: the indoor air quality and our HVAC. We've got some great, probably the best investment that we've made this year has been on the quality of our HVAC technicians. We've got a team that are just second to none, and we've been blessed to get these guys. And we're really counting on some great things going into 2021 with the experience that we've gained this year. Down the road, our next plans are the electrical side of the business. So we're going to, we started out in plumbing. We've added HVAC, indoor air quality. We're going to start doing some energy assessments, energy efficiencies. and then electrical. We want to be able to, whatever touches a home, we want the customers to use us rather than calling a competitor that offers plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. Because if we only do plumbing and someone else does the others, and our customer has an issue with HVAC, they build a relationship with the HVAC company. Who do you think they're going to use when they have a plumbing? They're going to use that company. So the next 5 years is really, and we're setting right on the cusp of this thing. And it's such a great opportunity for us with building these other brands, these other trades that we're wanting to get into. And I got to be honest with you, Daniels is an Austin brand. He is fitting that brand perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it too, right? You've infused your community into your brand. It's like people want to work with people who get them, right? And that just kind of came naturally for you guys. For others, it's got to be more of a conscious effort. But yeah, I think it is going to be exciting. Go for it,
I
Dan.
did some work for a gentleman in Orlando, Florida. And this guy became bigger than life himself with branding his, it was in the pest control. And this was 25 years ago. I went and spent some personal time with him, and he became bigger than life. And now he's probably about the 4th or 5th largest pest control company in the United States. I mean, he started from owning Orlando to expanding to where he is today. And Daniels impressed me with that same type of personality, bigger than life. It fits the environment that you live in. This gentleman was in Orlando. That quality that they had to offer, that's how he fit. Daniels has got this quality that the people are looking for in Austin. And so a great brand right there.
And I think too, like that's one of the biggest things. It's the formula, and it's a repeatable formula. You know, it doesn't happen. It doesn't have to happen in just Austin. It can happen in Charlotte, North Carolina. It can happen in Fishkill, New York. It can happen in Portland, Oregon. Every single area has its own look and feel and demographics and things like that. And tailoring your brand, whether even you're building a new brand or you've already got an established company, maybe thinking about how can we weave the overall makeup of this community into our brand so that we resonated with it better. Because that's what's going to drive at the end of the day the performance of your last click platforms like SEO and pay-per-click and local service ads. You know, I liken a lot of these last click platforms as like an 8-cylinder engine. And if nobody knows your brand or your brand doesn't resonate with the market, you're running on 6 or 7 cylinders on an 8-cylinder engine. It's just puttering. It's not efficient. All we have to do is just build that brand affinity. And it puts that 93 premium gasoline in that engine, and it just, you can see it just start to kind of unfold. So, you know, that would be, and it's a repeatable formula. Like that's not unique, you know, and this is something that can be done in any industry, in any market. It's just, you got to have the wherewithal of that's what you need. And then you got to spend the money to make it happen.
You do. I want to make a point to what you're just saying. When I left, and we talked about the big company Orkin. Orkin's the largest pest control company probably in the world. Terminex is second. It's in excess of $1 billion. But when you think about Orkin, it's kind of like McDonald's. You on the east, you can go into New York and you get a Big Mac, and it's going to be just like this. Mm-hmm. 2 pieces of meat and all that. You go into San Francisco, walk into a McDonald's, you're going to get that same Big Mac. So that's the service that you can get. But when you put your personality of the area that you are in, and I learned this from all of the turnarounds that I had to do, that you know you can't, even though you make your Big Mac the same, it's the people that you serve, and you got to make it interchangeable with the people that you serve. And so I took that philosophy with me when I had my first franchise. I knew what it was going to take. You know, it just takes that local. You got to figure out what your person. We had blue collar in the first franchise. It was all blue collar. So I immediately knew I had to intermingle with that, and I became their local Orkin man. And that's that brand I built for myself. I went to College Station, and there's a cult in Texas A&M, and you that's that Aggie culture.
12th man.
So I immediately had.
Oh.
That's right. That's right. So I immediately had to build on that brand so I could be accepted. Once I figured it, and that's exactly right. Once you get, that's what's so unique about Daniel here is he knows exactly what that culture is in Austin. That blew my mind whenever I saw what he was doing with it. And you're so right. You can't take people in a particular area for granted. Just because you do things one way in New York City doesn't mean you're going to do that same thing in Austin, Texas. You got to localize it to fit your community.
And it's pretty easy for me because it's a culture that I just naturally fit into. I've always, and so it made it a little bit easier. But, being in, College Station, and when I was in College Station, I had a franchise, and I felt so restricted. I couldn't do anything. You couldn't localize this franchise. It was, it was more of having it was like having a wind set. It was like having a sail, right? Like it's like putting a big old parachute on your car. You're only going to go so fast, right? And because you just couldn't localize your brand, you're just kind of stuck with it. And I understand that if you're on a national level, but on a local level, and if you look, most biggest companies in most cities are going to be a local outfit unless they look local and they've just are owned by a larger firm.
Gotcha.
And that's because you can localize it to fit the industry or fit the community and fit the culture of the community. Every city, every town in this country has their own culture.
Yeah. And homeowners want to use the local business. They don't want to use the corporate businesses. That's what they want. But they also want that local business to be reputable and to be clean cut and be nice to them and have a good reputation. All that stuff, obviously, that the corporate world does already have. They also want that as well. So they want to support local business, but they also want to get the corporate pricing and the corporate modeling and the corporate treatment, So there is that kind of fine medium between a local feel, because there's a lot of benefits to the corporate way of running businesses as well. I mean, there's things that they figured out and formulas that they figured out that work that they can repeat in every market. But it's 100%. But getting into that homeowner's house is difficult if you are corporate. So having that local feel is just massively beneficial, especially for me as a marketer to work with a brand and to try to drive leads.
Well, I love it, guys. Yeah. We're gonna have to land this plane. We're riffing here, and I love it. But I know Ryan's got a hard stop, so I have some closing.
I do need to say something about landing the plane. I always use this. It's like it's in a sales pitch, and you got this guy who's you're doing sales training, and you say, "Man, what's your weakness? What can I work on you?" I just really, I do really good, but I'm not good at closing the sale. So my analogy has always been, well, think about being on this big jet airliner, and you take off and you get up about 33,000 feet, and your stewardess comes on, your flight attendant comes on and says, "Welcome today. Your pilot is Captain Johnny Jacobs." If you notice, Johnny was really good. Captain Jacob was really good on his takeoff. And look how good we are on leveling out here. The only problem, he's just a little bit weak on his landings. So how would you like to be on a plane? That's the same thing with closing the sale, You can't be weak on your landings or you're not going to land smooth. So with that being Ryan, that being said, you can land your plane.
Spread my wings and fly. Coming in for landing.
Bring on in.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Great talking with you.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Let me close with a quick recap. So yeah, everybody go check out danielsaustin.com. And I will mention we've got a new website for them on the way. So in the coming month or two, that might be danielsaustin.com will very much be refreshed and have that local community brand infused with it. So we're really excited about that. A couple lessons that I learned today. First and foremost, be passionate about what you do, right? Daniel started this business out of passion. He learned along the way that passion doesn't get you the whole way, doesn't get you 100% success, but it's a great foundation to start on, and it's certainly a good foundation to build a culture on. Another lesson, communicate with your marketing vendor. A lot of the success that we've had with Daniels came from sheer communication back and forth on a weekly basis between Jim and Ryan, Daniel and Ryan, understanding their growth aspirations, understanding their brand, how they operate, and really, keeping an eye on the same metrics as we grow with them, right? So knowing that we're talking apples to apples when it comes to the data. A third lesson here, a healthy relationship with your marketing vendor should last for years, but don't let the fear of switching keep you back from reaching your true potential. So Daniel said, what's Daniel's third marketing vendor in less than a year. They knew that those first two marketing vendors weren't getting them the results that they really desired and that they needed to achieve their growth aspirations. So although it was a really perilous and scary time for them, ultimately it paid off. And we're seeing those results, actually come to fruition now. So now that they are in more of a healthy marketing relationship, it's something that they can stick with for years to come. And then the final lesson here is infuse your community into your brand. So your product or service can be the same as all your competitors, but your customers are different, right? Your customers want to work with people who get them, who get their community. So yeah, you can take the formulas maybe from your competitors or from larger corporate businesses that have proven paths to success, but you want to retain that community-oriented brand and culture, and evaluate all those different customer experiences along the way, and make sure that those interactions from the call with your CSRs to putting the booties on when you enter the door to the smile that you give when you're exiting the door, all those little things really add up and matter. And the more that you can make it feel like, hey, I grew up in the same area that you did, we talk the same language, the more you're going to connect with your customers. And that's something that Daniels does really, really well. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Jim Barry and Daniel Lawlis for their time, and Ryan, your time as well. And we look forward to the next episode of Home Service Success TV. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Davis.